But over the past week, Matt, I've noticed that you've been quite active on social media with music that you've been listening to. One of which caught my eye, which was Yellow Card, which absolutely love that band. Probably up until the album, you was listening to. I'm trying to think of the name of that album. Was it Three Flights Up, something like that? It's called.
It's white, grey, and yellow on the cover. I can't
Yeah,
remember exactly.
I can't remember the actual album title off the top of my head, but that was a great album. What else you been listening to?
Well, the reason I was listening to that, as many of the others that I've been posting, is weirdly linked to gaming, but has then got me back into this particular type of music. Years and years ago, I think it was 2006, 2007. I can't remember the exact date. There was a game called Burnout Revenge, and love it, absolutely loved it. I mentioned in our gaming episode about Takedown, which was amazing, and then the follow-up to that was Revenge, which, following our gaming episode, I discovered you can buy it on Xbox Live for $9.99. So I bought Burnout Revenge on Xbox, and I've been playing it, and I've just been absolutely loving every second of it. But what I'd forgot was the soundtrack is amazing on there, and which then led me, my little sort of path of discovery led me to find on Spotify, and they have so many gaming soundtracks which are incredible. So they're all different playlists, and listening to the playlist for Burnout Revenge, it's just got so many bands like Yellow Card. Yellow Card's not a band that I was sort of consciously into at the time, but sort of I think hearing you play it in the car and stuff like that, and hearing them, and really, really good. Bands like Maximo Park, I completely forgot about from that sort of time. Avenged Sevenfold, there's Bullet for My Valentine, all those sort of bands of that era.
It was that era, yeah.
Amazing, absolutely amazing soundtrack. And so if you get it when you're in the title screens and stuff, all these songs coming up, and sort of a bit like you mentioned about Crazy Taxi, sort of knowing all the songs off that. It's the same with this. You start a level and you're doing a race, and you've got that music in the background, and it just fits the mood perfectly. And being able to sit there and just listen to the playlist, incredible, absolutely incredible stuff.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you mentioned that era, which is kind of when I was into that. I'm still into the same music now. We talked about it before. I tend to always go back to them sort of bands that I used to listen to. But I felt like around that time, it didn't matter what new band was coming out, they would instantly be a hit usually, because that music was so relevant at that time. I think nowadays it's a lot tougher for bands like that to be able to just come into the industry.
I think at the moment now, that sort of period of guitar-based music was huge, isn't it? From bands like Arctic Monkeys, even through to like Fall Out Boy, and all these different sort of mix of stuff. But now it's I think the charts particularly is so dominated by sort of hip hop and those sort of like crossover of that sort of music. You don't get a huge amount. There was a band, so I'm rambling today, and there was a band that I did discover that I really need to check out, that called Idols, IDLES, which are pretty cool. Which are a guitar-based band, new band, yeah. So,
just going back to Yellow Card, I remember one of the things about them which made them sound quite unique was they had a violinist.
Really?
In their band, yeah. So if you ever listen back to some of their first albums specifically, which was called Ocean Avenue, I believe, it's got a prominent, like a lot of their songs, you can really hear the violin in it. It's quite a weird sort of mix into a kind of, I wouldn't, kind of rock punky sort of band. But yeah, they were one of my favourites. And again, from that era, and that leads on to some news that I've seen recently, which is band that I again loved from that time, which was Slipknot.
Yeah.
Have you seen that Corey Taylor's brought out his own solo stuff?
No, has he?
And even weirder was seeing him on. He was on Sunday Brunch.
Really?
For the UK TV listeners, they will know what I'm talking about, on Channel 4 on a Sunday, just a chat show with a bit of cooking in there as well. And he was on Video Link talking to the hosts on there about his solo stuff. such a cool guy. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I've only ever known him through Slipknot. So,
Yeah.
you know, when they've got the masks on and all that, which he talked a little bit about on the show. But he said he'd always had a lot of songs that weren't quite right for either of the bands, because he's in another band as well, isn't he?
I don't know.
It'll come to me. But yeah, he said the songs just weren't quite right for them particular bands. But then he said he felt greedy because he works in two different bands. He felt like, is doing a solo project, is that too much?
Yeah.
But he thought, but then no one will ever hear these songs. So
Exactly.
he's now brought out all these songs. And I first caught wind of it, which I should have probably mentioned last week, when watching some wrestling. NXT, which is the developmental side of WWE. They had a pay-per-view event last weekend, and his song was the kind of the song for that event, and it's a really good track, and it's still you know, heavy, but not to the same levels as Slipknot. So it's probably a more of an easy listen in that respect. But yeah, really good, and kind of showed another side to him and another string to his bow as such. But yeah, definitely say check that out. Really cool.
Slipknot were one of those bands that I sort of not quite missed out on, but like they were, having been into the whole new metal thing with Limp Bizkit and Korn and all of those bands and that, and they came at the end of that, and it was probably when I started to drift off into slightly different things. So I remember them coming out and the hype and like how big they were and that, but they weren't any that I really sat down and listened to intently or saw in any gigs or so, and it was more probably the Deftones and people like that, and I was following at that sort of time.
I think I never got into him straight away because I always thought it was a bit too shouty, but I think as I've got older and listened to it properly, you can appreciate the songs more, and I definitely
you've got more angry. That's what
and I've got more anger. Well, that's exactly it. The anger's there. It just comes out when I'm listening to Slipknot. But yeah,